last time. As a matter of fact, last time I had some technical difficulties, and this time I actually brought my laptop so I can actually see the comments a little bit. And what I want to do is I'm just going to refresh this page so I can see, I think I can see my live stream here. Oh, that's interesting. It's using a different thumbnail, but I should be able to see my live stream comments on here. Last time I was having some severe difficulties actually getting my comments over on the live stream, so I can actually see the chat now. As a matter of fact, last time I missed all the super chat and everything. It was kind of disappointing. And the first person, hey man, what's going on? This is Wildland Warrior Kota, the first person on my second live stream. Pretty awesome. So I was just saying, I was kind of doing things a little bit different, and as a matter of fact, this time I'm in my car again because don't really have the connection at home. So I'm back in my Porsche, but I'm in a different location. This time I'm in front of the library, and with the library, what I can do is I can actually connect to my laptop and see I can actually see the it's kind of weird because there is a definite lag between what I'm seeing on my laptop and what I'm seeing on my phone. It's like freaking me out. It's kind of weird. But actually, I'm actually using my little portable lights again. I have two portable lights, and I'm probably going to do a live stream for about an hour. And last time my lights lasted an hour, and if this time I'm hoping they'll actually last. I have one spare light in case one of them conks out. So it looks like some people are showing up. I actually can scroll through the comments now, which is pretty cool. So hey, hello. Looks like I got a bunch of comments here. And the funny thing is, I was kind of looking at my last live stream, and there's someone in there saying, hey, do I like the spider morph ball python? That kept coming up over and over. The funny thing is on my phone, I can only see 3 comments, and over here on my laptop, I can actually see all the comments. So when I see them on my phone, it just pops up for a second and then disappears. And last time they were just going so fast I couldn't even see them. And then when I looked back at the replay, I could actually see they weren't really going that fast. It was like my phone kind of freaking me out. So actually someone was asking me, do I like the spider ball python, which is kind of an interesting question because I actually had a comment on one of my videos. Someone was talking about they had some kind of a genetic defect in their family. They think they got it from their grandmother, passed down through the generations, and they kind of had the same kind of a weird, it was almost kind of, they said it was similar to the head wobble. And it was funny, they're actually saying that, you know, they really got offended, people saying that they shouldn't breed spiders when you could kind of relate and you actually had it in the family is a kind of like a personal anomaly that was handed down through the generations. I thought it was kind of an interesting angle on the whole spider. But, you know, I think, you know, I really don't like to see morphs die. The spider is really beautiful. I think we should breed them in a small amount and keep the morph going. So, yeah, I'm getting a lot of comments, a lot of people showing up. That's pretty awesome. How do you feel about Bci Bows? I don't have any boas. I would actually like to get into some boas at some point. And I'm thinking about maybe doing like a super fire. I kind of had my eye on the super fire boa. It's pretty awesome. It's an all white snake. Skeeter says, do I hunt or fish? As a matter of fact, I used to hunt a little bit. Probably the best hunting that I like to do is grouse hunting for birds, which is pretty awesome. And fishing, let me tell you, my family is obsessed with fishing. And I used to fish pretty much every single day. And now that I'm, you know, kind of in the whole YouTube thing, I really don't have time to do much of anything, but I really like to get out and fish sometimes. But the problem is my schedule is just so packed, but I do love fishing. It's pretty awesome. As a matter of fact, the last time I was fishing, it was kind of interesting because it was my dad while he was still alive. It was a couple years ago, and all my brothers were sitting there over on the lake. It was an 11-mile reservoir, and they're all sitting there fishing. And I was going to say, I actually wrote them, and I said, hey, I want to catch up with you guys later, and I'm going to come out and fish. And what I actually did is I went to the fishing report, and I found out what lure was actually working for pike. And I actually got the lure, and I walked right up to him, and I cast it out, and I caught this huge pike right in the middle of everybody sitting there. They're sitting there half the day, didn't catch a single thing, and I pulled up this big pike. It was pretty amazing. You have to be in the right place with the right lure, come to find out. Do I do any ice fishing? I actually did ice fishing a long time ago when I was probably 10 years old with my dad, but I really didn't do a lot of ice fishing. Do you like more expensive breeding? It's kind of I don't know if I would say I like more expensive breeding. I like a whole variety of breeding. A lot of times I really don't look at the money. I just want to make sure I have enough money to pay the bills. I don't really look at the price per se. And this is kind of interesting. My computer is kind of stuck, and I'm not really seeing the comments anymore here on my computer, supposedly hooked up to the library Wi-Fi. So I can see some questions on here. Would you expand your breeding facility in order to breed more? I'm actually thinking about doing that at some point. Not really to the point where probably what I'll do is I'll end up moving somewhere or getting a little facility, maybe closer to Denver, so it's not such a long haul. And I actually like to get a bigger facility where I could hire some people down from the city where they don't have to drive all the way out. The problem is I'm about an hour away from the city. And someone said, can you notice me, please? I did notice you, and you went right by really quick. How are the cows doing? The cows are doing great. Do I smoke weed? Nope, I don't smoke weed. How is my drone? My drone's doing great. The funny thing is I actually crashed my drone the other day, and it really hasn't been the same since I crashed it. Now it's kind of freaking out. I think I kind of loosened something up in there. Let's see. Are you going to breed your bamboo ball python this year? I'm actually breeding Bobby's offspring. So essentially what it is I'm breeding, I actually bred Bobby to a lesser, and I got a bamboo lesser, which is a lilac, and I'm breeding that back into everything else. So instead of just breeding Bobby into another snake, and where I get half bamboos, I'm actually breeding the other one where half are bamboos, half are lessers. Pretty much replace Bobby, so I don't get any normals out of all those clutches. I get, the bamboos and the lessers. So I can actually see over on my computer, just finally caught up with all the comments. It kind of crashed there for a minute. We're watching in Pennsylvania. Alexander Wigan, I do notice you. I see you on my laptop. Actually, this is way behind. That's funny. My comments over on the laptop. This is like, how is your drone? Do you smoke weed? This is like a few minutes behind. It's a little bit lagged over here. So, do I consider the albino pied a good investment? Definitely. Seems like when I first started in ball pythons, the albino pied was selling for about $1,000. Albino pieds are still selling for about the same. It's interesting. Some morphs really hold their value, and some kind of crash really fast. Some actually increase in value, which is kind of interesting. What are my thoughts on the pied orange ghosts? That is a good question. I've never actually seen a pied orange ghosts. What new morph am I looking at now? Probably the biggest thing that I'm looking at right now, the thing I'll probably buy next year after looking at all the different morphs. It's kind of funny because I'm doing, the little morph specials on every single morph, trying to cover everything as I go. And I think pretty much what I'm going to go for is the acid. And the interesting thing is the acid's kind of the same thing as the confusion. I think it's the same thing as the static. So, and they're all about the same price, the acid, the static, and confusion. And it's almost like the leopard kind of effect, except it's kind of a leopard on steroids. Just kind of makes the patterns explode. It's pretty awesome. So I was actually looking over here on my laptop, and I was actually looking on my phone at the comments too, kind of going back and forth. My laptop's lagging up behind a little bit, but the sad thing about the comments last live stream is people are actually doing super chats, and I didn't see them on my phone. I was kind of, I didn't, because I only see like 3 comments at a time. This time I can actually see the super chats over on my laptop over here. And the other thing is if you actually have a comment that is like 5 or 6 lines, a lot of people are putting a lot of like hearts and smiley faces and stuff, trying to get noticed in the comments. The problem is on my phone, it doesn't really fit, and it just flies by really quick. So probably the shorter the comment would be a little bit better, because I can actually see it a little longer on my phone, versus if you have like a really big comment, then it kind of flies by. So it's funny because my phone, like, it kind of blinks in and out on the comments. Am I married? Yes, I am married. I've been married for over 20 years. Um, what are my stance on breeding blood pythons and ball pythons? I would not recommend doing hybrids. The problem with hybrids is you get a lot of snakes that I'd say if you did some hybrids, it'd be kind of cool to buy one as a pet, but I don't know if I'd breed one because a lot of people really don't like them, as you really can't breed them because it kind of dilutes the gene pool, and it's pretty much a pet only type of snake. Do I have a name for my business? Chris Hardwick Reptiles. Am I taking any apprentices? That is a good question. Not at the moment. I'll probably be looking to hire some people once I expand, but that's probably a few years down the road. I'm hoping my YouTube really takes off, where I actually, make quite a bit of money. I'm hoping I make some money from YouTube and I can reinvest it into the snakes, and then eventually have the snakes and YouTube making money. And at that point, hopefully I can get a big facility and have both of those actually paying for it and hire some employees. That's kind of my long-term goal on with my whole snake and YouTube business. The snakes I sell on Morph Market, do I feed live or frozen thawed? I pretty much do a combination of both. I say mostly, in most cases, I would do live. It really depends. So if I'm doing like a bigger snake, I almost always do like a fresh killed or a frozen thawed. But if I'm doing hatchlings, most of the time I'd say it's small rat pups or hopper mice, and it's just this kind of, I'm going through and just kind of cleaning out the rats and putting the excess, the little tiny ones with all the hatchlings. That's kind of how I clean it up. Sometimes I do an occasional frozen thaw just so they get used to it. So if someone buys a snake, it's not used to all live or anything like that. So thanks. You love my YouTube. Yeah, I did a video on shipping yesterday. That was a pretty cool one. Let's see. Do I have a favorite female snake? I would say my favorite female snake is probably Lucy. She is my reticulated python. I'd say she's probably close to 100 pounds now. She's a really big snake. Why don't I have an Instagram? What happened to Penny? Actually, I started about 10 YouTube channels. And it's kind of interesting. You get into YouTube and you're like, man, I wish I could do, camera reviews, tech reviews, maybe a fishing channel. And there's all this stuff you can do on YouTube. But, the power of YouTube is if you really want your channel to grow, you really have to focus on one specific topic. And let me tell you, doing videos every single day, plus cleaning and breeding and selling all my snakes, there's just really no time at all for a second channel. And a lot of people try multiple channels. The problem is if you do another channel, then you really can't do daily videos on every channel. Really, to take off, you need daily videos. So I started a channel, and it's funny, you get all into it and you get all gung-ho and you start putting out some videos, and then you're down the line, you're like, I just can't handle two. My mind's gonna explode trying to do two channels. That's kind of why I just stayed with one channel. Oh wow, it's actually the legs actually caught up now. I can actually see real time here. Did YouTube change? I'm afraid to make videos, says Matt Price. You know what, YouTube did change. As a matter of fact, if you have a kids channel or kids content, you're pretty much dead in the water, and it's really disheartening. As a matter of fact, I was just looking on Google. I just opened up Google, and it was like one of the news articles that popped up, and there was a guy doing Legos. It was kind of a kids channel with Legos. Had over 1 million subscribers, and he had 5,000 videos, and he said his ad revenue went to 0. It was so disheartening. He says basically he has to start all over. He says, obviously you're going to keep going with YouTube because you figure it out and you can actually do it. It takes you about 5 or 10 years to actually get to the point where you're making some really decent money. But let's see, the best way to go from live to frozen. I would say probably the best way is to actually take, I'd actually feed a live and then kind of follow up within like half an hour of eating the live with a frozen thawed. Another thing you can do is actually take a mouse and kind of wipe it on a rat, or what you can actually do is kind of follow up with a frozen thawed mouse right after you feed like something live. Like if you did a live rat, you could follow up with a frozen thawed mouse. Usually they'll eat mice. Ball pythons will eat mice a little bit better, and that's an easy way to switch. Sometimes it's impossible to switch. Sometimes you can switch. I'd say it just takes a lot of time. Would I trade ball python for ball python? Probably not, unless it was really something I really wanted. At this point, not really. I can't really afford to buy any snakes right now. I pretty much just have a budget for one really high-end snake per year is kind of what I'm doing. So if you had like an acid or a confusion or something like that, I may be tempted to actually trade for something that I would actually want. Is there any way I can get a bamboo ball python? You'll have to wait for Bobby's grandchildren to get an actual bamboo. I'm actually probably going to have some bamboos available probably mid to late summer after they hatch. So I don't even have any eggs yet. And then once you get eggs, it takes like 2 months for the eggs to hatch. And then after the eggs hatch, it's usually another month at least to get several rodents into that hatchling. Let's see. VPI Axanthic for bamboo? Not really. Probably not. Let's see. There's a lot of projects I want to get into, but it's always difficult. I think what I'm going to do is I'm just going to stick with really high-end marks. Probably anything over $1,000. Something kind of high-end is what I'm thinking. Just kind of do the minimum amount of snakes with higher amount of money. Was it hard learning to edit videos? Any software you recommend? Let me tell you, doing YouTube, essentially what I started out with is I was doing it on my camera. I bought a really cheap, like $40 camera, and I was just uploading directly without any editing at all. And then I actually went to downloaded VSDC, which is a free video editing software. And then after that, you know, I was really struggling with it, and I finally went to Adobe Premiere Pro, and you get, I think I got the whole package of Photoshop and the whole Adobe everything. It's like $30 a month. You have to actually pay a monthly fee. But if I was to do it again, I'd probably start with Adobe Premiere Pro and pay the monthly fee, because let me tell you, it's so powerful, and there's so many videos out there on YouTube about Adobe Premiere Pro. It's pretty awesome. What do I think about short tail pythons? I'm not really familiar with short tails. What field of science were you in? I actually have a master's degree in organic chemistry. I was pretty much in the medical device field. Would I ever consider doing an egg cutting video? Actually, I have quite a few egg cutting videos that I've done in the past. You could probably just type in on YouTube Chris Hardwick egg cutting. I think I have like maybe like 10 or 12 egg cutting videos. How far do I travel for shows? I'd say probably the furthest one is about maybe 3 hours, maybe 2.5 to 3 hours is probably the furthest. Can you cross multiple types of albinos, like a regular lavender and regular albino? I don't think they're compatible. So I think you can actually have a triple het of caramel albino, lavender albino, and albino. Hey, thanks for the super chat. I can actually see it on this computer. That is awesome. Go buy a coffee. Yes, I definitely will. As a matter of fact, I just started drinking this Starbucks triple shot energy. Man, if you want to kick in the skull, that'll actually get you going. The triple shot, it's like, kind of makes your hair tingle when you drink it. It's kind of wild. Let's see what else we have. Yes. All right. Let's see. I'm going to kind of go back in the history of some of these comments here. what would I breed? What would I put with a pastel lesser? That's always a good question. You know, people are asking me, what should I breed with what to actually breed? You know, I'm always thinking, like, if I had a pastel lesser, what I'd probably breed it with is something else in the blue-eyed leucistic complex. Probably what I go for is a Mojave, because pretty much the brightest blue-eyed leucistic with the best eyes is, I would say, is the Mojave lesser. If you get a lesser, sometimes the eyes can be a little bug-eyed on some of those. And I would say, as far as the whitest one, the Mojave lesser is probably the whitest. Do I have any bloods? No blood pythons. When are you going to visit Nerd? That is a good question. I would like to actually travel around at some point and visit a lot of the bigger reptile breeders. Nerd's been around a lot longer than I have. I think probably the one I watch the most is probably Nerd and Brian Barczyk out of all the different ones. Is there a super pinstripe? That is a good question. As a matter of fact, I've seen super pinstripes over on Morph Market. For the longest time, they said there was never one, but I've actually seen some over there. I think there might be a super pinstripe, which means it's not dominant anymore. It'd be co-dominant, which is kind of interesting. Let's see, there's a little lag here between these two. Get boas, Chris. Yes, I definitely need to get some boas. That is for sure. I'm going to go back just a little bit. What is my plan with the scaleless? That is a good question. It's kind of interesting. I actually did a little video on the scaleless ball python, and it looks like almost no matter what you mix with the scaleless, you get kind of a washed out scaleless. So I'm kind of waiting to see what other people produce, something really impressive in the scaleless. Probably what I'll do is I'll just start producing. I really want to produce my first all scaleless ball python. It'd be pretty awesome. And then probably what I'll do is I'll hold back a male and a female, try to breed them back together and get a whole clutch of scaleless. I don't even know. I'm not completely sure if anyone's ever actually bred two scaleless together to see if it actually works. You know, sometimes, especially with the new morphs, you don't know if there's any genetic defects or anomalies or anything like that. So I've actually seen people breed scaleless heads together to get the complete scaleless. Let's see. If you were to get into colubrids, what species would you specialize in? That is a very good question. You know, I actually saw one guy that specialized in garter snakes, and it seemed like he kind of got out of it. I'd kind of be interested in actually getting into garter snakes. It's pretty awesome to actually breed. And this is kind of wild. Wow, the video on my laptop. I'm just now holding up my Starbucks can on the video. It's like, wow, that is a super lag, but it looks like the chat is almost, you know, word for word. It's weird seeing it actually kind of a lag here. Let's see. Indigos are really, the only thing with the indigos, I don't know if you can have a whole lot of different, I don't know if there's any morphs of the indigo. I think it's just all a black snake, and that's kind of the bummer with the colubrids. When I first got into it, you know, you get California king snakes. Essentially what you do is you bring them together and you get a bunch of California king snakes. There's a few morphs in some lines. You can actually get maybe 20 or 30 different morphs, but in ball pythons there's like hundreds and hundreds of different morphs, and that's kind of what directed me into ball pythons, and that's why I got out of all the other colubrids, is because I was going for the morphs, kind of going for the artistic snake breeding instead of just producing a whole bunch of snakes and then making some money. Crebos are pretty cool too. Let's see. I'm having issues with my snake striking the water jug when I put water in her bowl. And she's a ball python. What should I do? I would say you probably need to handle it a little more if you're having problems with an aggressive ball python. Normally you can handle them if you actually pick up the snake and handle it for like 2 or 3 hours. Almost any snake you can really calm down. I have pretty much only one out of my whole collection of hundreds of snakes that I've had over the years that just will not calm down for whatever reason. Just had a really bad experience. I think something happened to it before I actually got it. I actually got it through Morph Market. Do you plan on breeding your geckos? Yes, actually I do have my male and my female gecko together. As a matter of fact, I'll probably pick up one more female, looking for something maybe a little bit different, maybe like a yellow, something like that, something with a little bit different color than I already have. Thoughts on morph market and shipping? You know, I used to really be kind of leery of shipping, but now that I've shipped quite a few snakes, I'm a little bit more comfortable with shipping over on morph market. Morph market is fantastic. And really, you know, I wouldn't really ship to my residential address. Hey, I got another super chat. Love the videos. Thanks. That's awesome. Thank you for the super chat. Let's see. Do I have any future projects? Probably the biggest one is like the acid confusion project that I'm thinking about doing. I'd really like to get into some of the other new ones. One of the ones I'd really like to get into is the monsoon. That thing is insane. Still really can't afford it yet, and I think Dave Green's kind of cornered the market on that. Don't really want to buy hets, but when those actually hit the market and a lot of people start breeding them and the price comes down, definitely want to get into the monsoon stuff. Do I have an Orange Dream project going? No Orange Dream. I'd actually love to pick up the high intensity Orange Dream at some point. Do I still have the ducks? You know, that is interesting. It's funny. I actually put out this video called How to Make $2,000 a Month with 25 Ducks. So essentially what you do is, yeah, I just lost one of my lights. All right, so I'm going to actually turn on this light and replace this one. But yeah, I used to actually breed some ducks. I can't believe that light went out. All right, technical difficulties. Like balance it on the seat of my car over here. All right, so what do we at? We're at not even a half hour and that light died. That's pretty awesome. All right, so let's see. We're talking about ducks. That's, matter of fact, that video is my #1 video, and almost every single day someone asks, hey, can I buy some duck eggs from you? It's kind of interesting. Let's see. Hello teacher, what's for dinner? Duck, it's what's for dinner. Yeah. Let's see. What's your view on Curse of Oak Island? I haven't heard of that. Sorry. Matter of fact, someone else asked me about that too. I wasn't quite sure what that is. Nuclear project, that'd be awesome. What is the best Desert Ghost 3-gene combo? That is a good question. I'd say probably the best Desert Ghost that I like is actually just the straight pastel Desert Ghost. I've seen a lot of different Desert Ghosts. I think just the straight pastel is fantastic. What lights do you use? I'm actually using some studio lights. How many clowns are you shooting for this year? As many as possible. I'm actually breeding 2 clown females. I think one of them's probably not going to go. Hopefully the other one's going to go. So if all goes well, I'll get at least 1 clutch of 6 eggs. I'll probably hold back maybe 1 or 2 females and then kind of dabble in the clowns a little bit more. The problem is I'm running out of space really fast. What would I suggest for an entry-level incubator? I would suggest making your own. That's probably the best way to do it. And probably you can actually go with like some kind of like a refrigerator or a beverage cooler or something like that, and add some heat tape and a thermostat and a fan. How are your Pac-Man frogs? I only have 1 Pac-Man frog left. As a matter of fact, we actually sprayed some ants on the deck. I actually covered that in the last live stream, and lost almost all of my Pac-Man frogs. It was really sad. Let's see. Do I have a name for my rat substrate? My rat substrate is actually comes from I think it's Rocky Mountain Shavings. So essentially what you want to do is you want to find, probably the best way to do for rat shavings is to go to your local pet stores and ask them what they use for rat shavings, because that's how I actually found mine. And they actually pointed me to the store that actually sold the rat shavings. You want one that's dust free and one that is kiln dried, otherwise the pine can kill your rats. Almost missed your live stream. Hey, Supreme Gecko, what is up? Loving the drone footage. I was wondering how people would like the drone footage. I actually started adding that in a lot of my videos at the end. Just trying to do something a little bit different. Let's see. Chat disconnected over on my laptop, so I'm stuck over here. Yeah, keep the drone footage. Awesome. Are planning on breeding the retics again this year? Well, I actually bred them earlier this year, and Lucy, I think she's building eggs. It almost seems like she's going on this long fast, like either she's getting ready to shed or she's building eggs, and I'm pretty sure she's actually building some eggs because she's not eating, she's not moving or anything, and the back half of her is getting really big. So I'm thinking she's gonna lay, and probably what I'll do is I'll probably give them next year off so I can get a lot of food back into them, let them recover a little bit before I breed them. I might breed them like every other year. The problem with Lucy is when I breed Lucy with Sunny, I'm gonna get all lavender albino super dwarfs. So what I really need to do, I think I need to get a different male so I can breed it and get a whole bunch of different genes, and just instead of having a whole clutch of 50 eggs, 50 hatchlings, all the same. So yeah, I think my I'm going to try to refresh this over on. Oh, no internet. You know what? I think the library actually cuts off their internet. It's a good thing I'm not actually doing my live stream through the library internet. So looks like I lost my chat over here on the library, which is interesting. I'm going to try to connect one more time. It's definitely disconnected. All right, so I have to enter my username and password. Maybe it just times out after a certain amount of time, because I definitely want to go back. There we go. All right, I'm back. I can see my comments again. All right, because on my phone I can only see, they're going by too fast. I can't really see comments that much. Is gravel ball python worth getting for a collection? That is another project I wanted to get into. As a matter of fact, I think the asphalt is a little bit better, especially if you compare the gravel, the freeways and the highways, the pastel freeways and the pastel highways. I just like the asphalt a little bit better, the freeways. And if you're kind of looking around at the different lines too, I've seen certain lines. And essentially what you want to do is, if you're getting into one of those projects, I would probably go with the end result where you see like a really impressive pastel freeway, and then buy into that. So you got a really good line of the pastel and all the other genes in there. Did I get a new pair of crested geckos? Yes. Well, I just got the two at the show, so I have those together. I got a big tank, doing really well, and I've been handling them a little bit. They're a little bit squirrely. I don't handle them a whole bunch, but yeah. All right, so I'm going back to this one here. Doing any pandapides? No, probably won't do the pandapides. How's Big Red? Big Red is doing great. He is really doing good. How many acres of property do I have? I actually have 6 acres, but the funny thing is you really can't tell, because right behind my property is, I think they call it like track land. Someone bought up like a whole bunch of property as a tax write-off, and they just kind of sit on it and don't do anything with it. And then the guy right next to me, believe it or not, if you go all the way to the end of my driveway, he actually owns part of my driveway, and you really can't see because his house is way back in the woods. So it seems like I have a lot of property up there, but if you actually built a fence all around my house, it wouldn't really be that much. It's just because there's no fences, and everyone that has property next to me doesn't really have houses crammed right next to me, which is pretty cool. My fridge incubator is running too hot. Do you think I have too much heat tape? No, I don't think so. Actually, my incubator actually ran hot, and the problem was it was the heat coming from the fans that circulated it. So I'm thinking it's probably your fans. The heat tape will just, it'll turn off once it gets to a certain temperature. It's got to be something else. I would probably suspect the fans. Hey, did I see Brian Gundy? Hey, what's up? It doesn't, I see your comment. Doesn't sound like your probe is set up right. Awesome. All right. Let's see. I have a female pastel. What would be cool? Male to mate with her. I'd always go for, like the super pastels. So anything with, the where you can make the super is always a good deal. I have a mystic potion. Let's see. What's up, Brian Gundy? How much money do you think you should start my ball python business? That is a very good question. As a matter of fact, you could probably start with $100. You could start really cheap. You can actually get, a cheap enclosure. As a matter of fact, if you went over to like a Craigslist or something like that, you could probably start with a free, normal, female ball python and probably get a whole enclosure or something like that. And I would actually I'd start with some low-end females, sit on them for a couple years, and then later on down the road, probably buy some high-end males. That's kind of what I did. And then breed them back to the females, and then once you start producing some really high-end stuff, you can kind of replace your normal females and go do it that way. The problem is I get to the point where I have my whole snake room and all my racks and everything pretty much just packed with all these snakes, and you get kind of attached to them. It's even the normal females, it's kind of hard to replace them, especially since some of the bigger ones that are producing like 15 egg clutches. It's hard to let those go because they're so productive. Let's see. For starting out as a breeder, do you recommend getting the result of what you want or get the ingredients? That is a good question. I think starting out as a breeder, you kind of have to take it slow. You kind of go through these progressions where you can't dump a lot of money into it at once. You have to keep reinvesting. So I would probably start with lower end stuff and then just produce. And then as you get more money, you can invest and replace. I wish I could have started out with, some $30,000 snake and got into the high end stuff, but it usually doesn't work with it. Usually you start with, by the time you start adding up all the enclosures and, everything else, it's a lot of money. Let's see. Don't you still need to circulate air? Is that the I think that's about the incubator question and the fan. And probably what I do is that if you're getting too much heat from your fan, I'd probably switch to like a different fan, maybe a smaller one, and try different fans. See if you can find one that doesn't put out the heat. Essentially what I did is I went with 2 fans in my incubator, and I found out it was too much heat coming off, and I went to one really small fan, and that worked the best. Let's see. What age should my first ball python be? That is a good question. I would say it doesn't really matter. Probably the best age to start out would be like just a few months old, because they're really aggressive eaters and you kind of have really good success feeding a younger snake, versus if you get an older snake, sometimes it can fast for a really long time. People get freaked out. I'm going to go back in my comments just a little bit here. How can you make money with ball pythons the very first year? I actually did a video on that, and the trick for that is to actually buy some females that are ready to go, and then you can buy a male, and you can even buy a really young male, and it only takes about a year for the male to get up to size. And if you have females, even normals that are ready to go, you can actually go on Craigslist and buy ready to go females, but it's going to cost you in most cases. But that's how you can actually make money the very first year. Would I be interested in 3 tame boas? Probably not right now, unless it was maybe like a super fire or something like that. What brand are your breeder cages? They are all ARS, from ARS Caging. Let's see. There's another one here. Let me go to the bottom. Do you have any social media I can follow you on? As a matter of fact, I don't. I have a Facebook account, but I don't really do anything over there. I have an Instagram account, but I don't do anything over there. I actually have, how I have a LinkedIn account with about 15,000 followers over on LinkedIn, but I don't really do anything on that. I pretty much just focus on YouTube anymore. It's pretty much all I can handle, doing daily videos over here on YouTube. Let's see. Do I work with Axanthic? No, don't have any Axanthic. Do you think you'll have any mystic potions? No mystic potions. Nope. Let's see. Do I have any bamboos for sale right now? Nope, don't have any bamboos. I have one bamboo that's on a payment plan, ready to, still taking payments on it. So as soon as that's paid off, I'll ship it out. I only had 2 bamboos when I started posting on Morph Market. My bamboos went pretty fast. It was pretty amazing. You still have frogs? The only frog I have is one big Pac-Man. Did I get Lucy's name from Brian Barczyk? Yes, I did. Yeah, that's, as a matter of fact, that's where I got it from. Am I producing any triple or quad hats? I just produced those triple hats that I have, albino pied clowns. I produced 6 of them, and I'm holding them all back. All right, so I want to go, let's see, it looks like, all right, it's catching up slowly over here. Would you breed leopards or cresteds? Actually, I like crested geckos better than the leopards. I actually had some leopard geckos, and I finally got rid of them. Didn't really like the leopards that much. I just thought the cresteds were just so... The thing I like that's really cool about the cresteds is when they crawl on you, it's like they have these weird feet that kind of crawls up all over. They can actually crawl on your shirt and on glass and everything. It's just really wild, and they're really super soft. It's weird because I didn't really like crested geckos. I always looked at them and I'm like, who on the earth would want a crested gecko? Until I actually had one crawl in my hand. I'm like, this is a wild creature. It's pretty awesome. What is up? I actually saw that real quick before it disappeared on my phone. Let's see. Finally caught me live. Yes. What morph is your biggest seller? Hey, it's finally on track with my my phone and my laptop are actually I can see the comments in real time. That's pretty cool. My biggest seller is probably normals, believe it or not. My normals go the quickest. As a matter of fact, I used to sell normals for 20 bucks, and I would like sell out of all my normals on the first try. I finally got up to, I raised them to like 50 bucks, and it's probably still my #1 seller is normals. Pretty amazing. Probably my second best seller is the bamboos. It's pretty awesome. I did a lot of hets this year, and I'd say the hets are kind of a hard sell. You really have to convince people to buy into a lot of hets, because a lot of people don't realize the potential of like the desert ghost or the like the double head albino pieds and stuff like that. You walk up to you walk up to my table at the reptile show, and you have all these normal looking snakes, but they're like het desert ghost or double head albino pieds. You kind of have to convince people, the potential of a lot of those. What county do I live in? I actually live in Park County in Colorado here. How come no one can reproduce the Stormtrooper? That is a very good question. As a matter of fact, when he produced the Stormtrooper, he didn't know exactly what the genes were in the Stormtrooper. He was just kind of, producing some Axanthics, and then popped out the Stormtrooper. He thought maybe it was an Axanthic desert ghost, but he wasn't 100% sure. I don't even think, the original breeder can actually reproduce the Stormtrooper. Let's see. Do you follow back the people that are currently following you? Actually, you mean as far as subscribers? I do subscribe. I'm actually subscribed to about 650 channels here on YouTube. It's pretty amazing. I don't follow every single person. As a matter of fact, I'm subscribed to so many people, they just kind of get lost within my whole subscription feed. It's just pretty amazing. What's the best state to live in as a breeder? I'd say It doesn't really matter the best state. I would say the best country is probably the United States. I was actually looking at Canada. There's just a few breeders in Canada, and the problem is with Canada is the shipping from Canada into the United States would be really expensive. You know, over in Europe, it's really the ball python industry is really booming too. But if you're trying to ship across the border, sometimes the shipping is, you know, like sometimes it's like $700 or $800. So it's unless you live in a really good country, it's kind of hard to export those snakes and still get a, you know, a price for it, unless you're really like shipping in bulk or something like that. Let's see. Another question here. So it looks like we're about 6:45, so I'm probably going to do another 15 minutes, and then that'll be about an hour for the live stream, which would be pretty cool. You know, I always thought that, you know, the best place to actually have a reptile breeding business would be like right next door to the NARBC, where you can just pick up your snakes and then walk over to one of the best shows, or, you know, like the Reptile Super Show or one of the really big shows. That'd be pretty cool to actually do that. Let's see. Would you work with hognose? And that's an interesting question. As a matter of fact, hognose are native to Colorado, and I think you can only have like a half dozen hognose or something like that. There's limitations on the number of hognoses. They pretty much regulate you out of breeding hognoses here in Colorado. Why did I go back to cocoa bedding? Actually, yeah, I think coconut bedding is the best. The problem is the gnats. Hey, I got another super chat. Thank you, Larry R. My corn snake likes a big female, so will he be happy breeding with a retic? Is that safe? I don't think you breed a corn snake to a retic. I think the size difference would be too great. I don't think it would work. Yeah, but be interesting hybrid if you could actually make it. As a matter of fact, someone was asking me, could you breed these two snakes together and do artificial insemination? I thought that would be kind of an interesting project, to artificially inseminate a retic with some corn snakes. You know, it would be kind of interesting if you could actually get that to work. Probably no one's ever done that before. Let's see. You know, I don't think I can go back. Oh, looks like I can actually go back on my phone. Huh, what do you know? Do you breed your snakes all year round, and how long does it take for an average snake to recover and be ready again? As a matter of fact, I pretty much breed all my ball pythons in the same cycle, and I pretty much pair them up all mid-October, and then usually they'll be ready by the following middle of October. I'd say maybe 20% of my females are kind of laying eggs a little bit later, and they're really not ready for the next year. They need probably, you know, quite a few rats to actually get to the point where they're big enough to actually breed again. All right, let's see. Now I can actually see my comments over here on my laptop. So I have a super pastel female and a male pastel leopard clown. What would I produce? As a matter of fact, I would recommend going over to either Morth Market or World of Ball Pythons and using their genetic calculator. You can plug it in and figure it out. You can actually, so if you had a super pastel female and a pastel leopard clown, everything would be het clown. Everything would be pastel. You get some super pastels, you get some pastel leopards, super pastel leopards, you get some leopards, and you get some normals. All of them would be het clown. Let's see. Do I need any moderators for my live stream? Not really. I haven't had that many people kind of making bad comments. As a matter of fact, if you keep spamming here on the live stream, say for example, if you have the same question and you keep saying it, you keep posting it over and over and over, I actually have a filter on here that kind of blocks it after a certain amount of attempts. So, yeah. Bot Destroyer, awesome. Game of Morphs, yeah, hopefully that'll prove out. Larry R, thanks for the super chat. Is breeding corn snakes easy? That's interesting. I would say breeding, I think you can actually, I'm pretty sure you can actually double clutch a corn snake, where you can actually get 2 clutches in a year. They lay bigger clutches than ball pythons, but the prices are lower. The problem with corn snakes that I've seen is that sometimes it can be a challenge actually feeding the hatchlings because they're so super small. I've actually seen some people where they'll take the smallest pinky mouse and then cut it in half to actually try to feed the baby corn snakes because they're so incredibly small. Do I let my rats and mice rest, or do I breed them nonstop? I used to let them rest, and I used to rotate the males through my females. There's some problems with that because the logistics on a scale like I am get really complicated. I have like 50 tubs, and probably the biggest problem is when I was moving some of my male rats in with the females, there was like severe fighting, sometimes almost fighting to the death. They'd like shred each other, and then I pretty much got to the point where I never separate them. I keep them together all the time, and there's essentially no fighting at all. Aside from a recheck, what would I recommend for large rat disposal? That is that is a good question. I'd say any of the big snakes you can do reticks, like a Burmese python. The problem is some of those get almost too big. So I would say if I did it again, I'd probably stick more with like the super dwarf or the dwarf reticulated python. Some of the smaller potential sizes. I'd say Lucy's almost to the point where she's a little bit too big for eating my rats. Hey, thanks for the super chat. Do I recommend building my own rack if you're handy, or saving up to buy a ready-to-go rack? That is a good question. I'd say probably, yeah, you can probably build your own rack. That's probably the cheapest way to go. If you're really handy, you can build a good one. As a matter of fact, I was thinking about building my own when I first got into the business. I was looking at the ARS racks, and I was like building some adapters for my rat rack up to my mouse rack. And I built the adapter with the steel, and I cut it and I welded it and everything, put it all together. The problem is by the time you get into it, if you're building metal racks that are similar to ARS, you almost don't really save much money at all. You're almost better off just to buy the ARS rack. They're really expensive, but let me tell you, there's a lot of money that actually goes into those racks. Hey, thanks for the super chat. Can I feed my 5-foot ball 3 jumbo mice? Yes, you can actually do multiple mice. I'd probably steer away from mouse. As a matter of fact, I have my big spider female, and she will only eat mice. I actually tried to trick her into eating a rat once, and she regurgitated it. The only thing she'll eat and hold down is actually a mouse, and it's really hard to get the weight on her with mice. Hey, thanks for the super chat. Nice rope gaming. I have an Orange Dream spinner blast. Awesome. That sounds like an awesome snake. I want to get into the Orange Dream. There's so many things that I'd like to get into, but it's just, you just get to the point where you almost need a whole warehouse of snakes to get into all these projects. And then, of course, if you have that many snakes, you need a whole team of people to help you, keep and maintain and breed all those snakes. I pretty much have my whole schedule full with just my 200 square feet and my 100 snakes and 50 tubs of rodents. It's pretty much all I can do just to keep up with that. Plus, I'm doing YouTube, every single day, so that takes a lot of time too. My wife just gave me half of her walk-in closet to invest in more snakes. Punk rocka, awesome. Now you just need to take over the kitchen. I actually heard this guy comes up to me. He's like, yeah, was that one of the shows? He comes up to me. I pretty much sold him some snakes right from the beginning. He's getting into ball pythons. It's been a few years, and he came up to me in the last show, and he says, hey, I have 37 snakes, and they're all in my kitchen. That was pretty awesome. Hey, thanks Larry R for the super chat. More drone following you footage. This interesting. Yes, I'll definitely keep the drone footage. What exactly is power feeding? That's a good question. I'd say power feeding is feeding, essentially what a lot of people do is, for example, if you get a female ball python, and you want that female to grow as fast as possible, and you just keep feeding it, like every other day or every 3 days, just trying to get it to the size. You're trying to put too many rodents into it than is normally acceptable for like a feeding schedule. That's power feeding. And I'd say sometimes I do power feed when I have females that have laid eggs and they've been fasting for a few months, and I really want to get them back up to weight really quick. Sometimes it's not really considered power feeding because you're trying to condition them from such a really bad body condition. But I'd say if you're kind of looking kind of at the greedy side of it, trying to get females up to size so you can breed them really fast, that's kind of considered power feeding. How did my wife feel when I started this? Actually, it was kind of interesting. Essentially what I did is I just started buying snakes and putting it in my basement, and didn't really get a lot of input from her, and didn't really know until later on that she was kind of freaked out by snakes. We kind of each go our separate way and do our own thing. It's kind of an interesting relationship. So I don't think she minds it, but I don't think she really likes that snakes that much. How can I buy snakes from you? You can actually go over to my Morph Market account. I actually have a link under every video. You can actually click on in the description where you can expand it and hit more. And I have a link in there over to the Morph Market. And you can actually go over there and whatever snakes I have over there, you can just message me over there, and we'll message back and forth, and we'll figure out the payment and the shipping and all that. Let's see. So it is 6:55. It looks like we have about 5 more minutes and it'll be an hour. So hello from Fort Collins. Hello. How did I start all of this? That is a very good question. What got me into snakes and what ruined it for me? I was totally addicted after watching Snake Bites from Brian Barczyk. That is what got me addicted, and probably watching my channel is probably what you get you addicted to. Hey, thanks for the super chat, Joe Lopez. Enchi pastel to orange ghost or pastel? That's a good question. If you breed it to the orange ghost, you'll get all hets. You'll get the Enchi pastel het orange ghost. But if you breed it to the pastel, you'll get some super pastel Enchis, which is pretty cool. So I'd probably do the pastel 1 year, and then I do the orange ghost the next year. That's the other thing is, you start thinking, you buy a bunch of snakes and you're like, what should I pair together? And you don't realize that, hey, in 5 years, I could breed all these together and kind of mix them up. You kind of had this, pretty much it's like, you're an artist, and every year you're painting different pictures instead of just, breeding 1 year and just kind of thinking short term, what can I breed this year? Let's see. What should I breed my female spider at 1,500 grams, but only 2? Should I breed my female spider? I've kind of been on the edge as far as it's breeding at 1,500 grams and 2 years old. I kind of did it on my clown. Actually, in my clown, it was 1,500 grams and 2 years old, and I bred it to my albino pied to get my triple hets. And that was kind of a rush project. If I was not really interested in trying to rush things and get something, produced really fast, because of course you have I guess it depends on if you're going to sell all the hatchlings or if you're going to keep them and grow them up. If you have a project, that you're going to keep them and grow them up, I'd say it's a little bit different. You're kind of rushing things, and you can breed at 1,500 grams. Hey, thanks for the super chat, Justin Stanley. Ball due this week. Went through a shed 2 weeks ago. It's been approximately 30 days. Is there a chance she absorbed the eggs, as everyone kept telling me? It's possible. I've actually had some where I actually ultrasound them and they absorb the eggs. Sometimes they can kind of trick you, and sometimes they'll have, instead of the pre-lay shed, it'll be the shed before the pre-lay shed, and it kind of delays it a little bit. So I'd say it really depends on what's going on with that snake. I'd say if you had an ultrasound, you could probably kind of get a better feel for it, or if you're really good, you can actually let it crawl through your hands and kind of palpate the follicles and feel them as they're kind of crawling through your hands. Thanks, Brian Gundy. Keep up the great work. Let's see. Besides ball pythons, what snake do you think has the potential to be profitable in breeding? That is a very good question. I would say anything that's expensive is probably profitable in breeding. You know, and pretty much the advantage for ball pythons is there's a really high demand and it's really easy to sell the offspring. That's probably the biggest thing. And that's kind of what sold me at the very beginning. As a matter of fact, I got into more of like colubrids and I was getting into king snakes. And then I went to my first NARBC reptile show and there's just a few people around the king snakes and the Woma pythons, you know, a lot of the snakes that I was breeding, and everyone was just crowded around the ball pythons. And that's when I realized, you know, there's really a higher demand for ball pythons, and it's a little bit easier to sell if you actually have, you know, something that you're breeding that's in higher demand. Chicks have like 60 eggs. Yes, they do. The problem is actually selling the retics. I'd say retics can be a hard sell. As a matter of fact, I've seen a lot of people breed retics and they'll say they only breed them every 4 or 5 years in some cases because the demand is just not there. You don't really want to flood the market with a lot of retics. And then, you know, if you can't sell the retics, it's a really hard sell. It's kind of like a supply and demand thing. Let's see. All right, so I'm gonna go back in the comments a little bit here. Looks like I'll go a little bit past 7 here. Do you plan on getting into boas? Yes, sometime I'll probably get into boas here in maybe 2 or 3 years. What do I think of rubber boas? I'm not really familiar with rubber boas. I've heard the name. Brandon Curtis says, you got me addicted to ball pythons 3 months ago, and I got 6 females breeding and over 25 snakes. That is amazing. As a matter of fact, my first year I actually have I think I had over 20 snakes in my very first year because of snake bites and Brian Barchek. It was pretty crazy. Can you inbreed ball pythons? That's a good question. I would say you could probably have problems inbreeding if you go over multiple generations over decades. I think that's the problem with a lot of the albinos. They've just been inbred for so long that, especially, you know, it seems like one of the ones that have the most defects when you're breeding albinos is because albinos was on the scene, you know, 20 years ago, and people have been breeding the same albinos, you know, for year after year, decade after decade, and it's just kind of, you know, you run into problems. But I think in the short term, if you breed, you know, the mother to the father to the, you know, back to the kids, you know, the offspring, even the grandkids, I don't think there's a problem there. It's just when you have multiple generations kind of, you know, driving some genetic anomalies. What's the best super that's not an all white snake? That is a good question. I'd say probably, I really like the super asphalt or the super gravel. Those are really awesome. All right. Let me go back to some of the current ones here. My wife wants to get a Rosy boa. Those are pretty awesome. As a matter of fact, I was thinking about Rosy boas at the very beginning. You don't see them very often. As a matter of fact, at one of my first pet stores that I ever went to looking at snakes, they had a Rosy boa, a really big one. All right, so let's see. All right, Supreme Gecko, see you later. You got to run. Yeah, I think I'm about going to wrap it up here too, so... let's see if I missed any questions here. I think that is about it. I think I'm going to wrap things up. It's about 7. Don't want to go too long past an hour. That is pretty much my max. So I'm going to wrap it up here and see if I can actually exit out of this live stream. So thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next video. I've been posting every single night videos at 6 p.m. Mountain Standard Time. So catch me over on my channel. I'll make a video every single night. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.